There's a quiet truth about children who grow up feeling unnoticed, a truth that almost never gets spoken out loud. It doesn't come wrapped in loud moments or dramatic scenes. It grows slowly, silently, in the background of everyday life. And this truth is simple. Children who are ignored often become adults who struggle to believe they deserve attention at all. They move through the world as if they are supposed to shrink. They enter conversations wondering if they're interrupting. They walk into relationships questioning whether their needs are too heavy or too inconvenient. Even when they succeed, there's a part of them waiting for their accomplishment to be brushed aside, as if being overlooked is the natural state of their existence. This pattern doesn't come from lack of talent or worth. It comes from the kind of childhood where a child's sense of self grows quietly in the shadows. Psychologists call it an internalized neglect, pattern of belief shaped over years that their voice doesn't matter. When a child tries to express something and gets silence in return, the brain starts expecting that silence. It starts anticipating it. After enough attempts, the child learns not to ask anymore. They learn to carry their excitement within themselves. They learn to hide their sadness. And they learn to manage their needs alone, even when they shouldn't have to. Most people have seen a child like this, though they may not have realized what they were looking at. Maybe you've seen a little kid tug gently at a parent's sleeve in a crowded room, waiting patiently for the smallest glance, the simplest acknowledgement. Maybe you've seen a quiet child on a playground staying close to the edges, watching others play. Maybe you've seen it at a family gathering, the child who doesn't interrupt, who doesn't raise their voice, who doesn't ask for anything at all. To most people, it looks harmless. Just a calm child, a quiet child. But inside, something is unfolding. Because for a child, being ignored isn't just a disappointing moment. It's a message that settles deep inside. Maybe I don't matter as much. Neglect isn't always loud. It doesn't always look cruel. Sometimes it's simply a parent, too tired, too overwhelmed, too distracted, or too emotionally distant to notice. It can be unanswered questions, eyes that never meet, a birthday barely remembered, a story the child tried to tell but couldn't finish because nobody was listening. And while these moments may seem small to an adult, to a child they feel enormous. Because children build their self-worth based on how the people closest to them respond. We often assume children are naturally resilient, and in a way they are. They adapt quickly. But adaptation is not the same as healing. When a child realizes that asking for connection results in disappointment, they adapt by becoming quieter. When they sense that their emotions will be ignored, they adapt by hiding them. When they learn that their joy doesn't create a response, they learn to keep it inside. Over time, this adaptation becomes personality, and personality becomes adulthood. From a psychological perspective, human connection is not optional for a growing child, it's essential. Children need safety, stimulation, and connection, but it's connection that shapes identity. When caregivers respond, listen, and acknowledge, they build a foundation of trust, a sense of I matter. But when a child's emotional needs go unnoticed again and again, something inside them begins to dim. They don't just feel sad in the moment. They begin to believe that what they feel isn't important. Neuroscience shows that when a child's attempts at connection are ignored repeatedly, the brain reads that absence as a form of threat. Stress hormones rise. The nervous system becomes tuned to expect rejection. By the time they're older, they may not even recognize where their anxiety or emotional fragility came from. They'll just feel it in their body, a subtle sense that closeness is unsafe, that asking for something is too risky, that speaking up is too dangerous. But from the outside, they often just look like a quiet kid. When emotional neglect happens, it doesn't leave visible scars. It leaves quiet ones, invisible ones, the kind of scars that don't fully show until adulthood, when the ignored child tries to love, tries to build relationships, tries to share themselves, and feels something in them tighten, hesitate, pull back. And that's where the story begins for many adults. Not in childhood, but in the echo of everything they never received. As these children grow older, the effects of being unseen don't fade. They don't evaporate simply because childhood ends. Instead, they settle into the small corners of adulthood, shaping behavior in ways the person might not even understand. The child who once learned to stay quiet becomes the adult who hesitates before speaking. The child who learned not to ask becomes the adult who struggles to express what they need. The child who felt invisible becomes the adult who feels like their presence is optional, something that can be removed without anyone noticing. They enter friendships and show up fully for others, listening, comforting, giving. But when it comes time to talk about themselves, something inside them tightens. They pause. They say, they wonder if their emotions are too heavy for others to carry. They may be the friend who always says, "It's fine, don't worry about me," even when they're hurting. Not because they don't want connection, but because they learned long ago that their feelings weren't something people responded to. In relationships, the patterns run even deeper. Some adults who grew up ignored cling tightly to anyone who shows them affection, terrified that love might disappear without warning. Others do the opposite, building emotional walls, keeping a safe distance, afraid that closeness will expose their needs. Both reactions trace back to the same childhood message: don't expect too much, don't need too much, don't be too much. And this isn't weakness, it's adaptation. Ignored children often survive by developing coping strategies that look, on the surface, like strengths. Some become fiercely independent. They learn to take care of themselves early, to avoid depending on anyone. People admire them for it. They're seen as strong, capable, responsible. But beneath that independence is often exhaustion, because self-reliance was never a choice. It was the only option they had. Others become high achievers. They pour themselves into school, work, or creativity, trying to earn the acknowledgement they never received. They become perfectionists, not because they love perfection, but because they're terrified that anything less will go unnoticed. Their accomplishments may be impressive, but inside, they feel like they're always chasing something that stays just out of reach. Some become peacekeepers. They avoid conflict at all costs. They're the ones who say sorry too often, who smooth things over, who bend to others' needs. They do this because conflict in childhood often meant emotional distance, or because they feared that speaking up would push people away. These adults don't fight for their needs because they learned early that their needs weren't something people cared enough to fight for. And then there are the children who eventually stop trying altogether. They give up before the world can ignore them again. By adulthood, they may struggle with motivation, not because they're lazy, but because deep inside, a voice whispers, "Why bother? Nobody will care anyway." And that voice is not their fault. It's an echo of years of emotional absence. The hardest part of emotional neglect is that it's invisible. People who grew up ignored often don't talk about it, because how do you explain the pain of something that didn't happen? There's no dramatic story, no single moment, no clear memory. It's a feeling in emptiness, a longing, a silence that grew louder over time. In therapy, many adults minimize their childhoods. They say things like, "I had a normal childhood. Nothing bad happened." And technically, that might be true. Nothing bad happened. But nothing good happened either. Nothing nurturing. Nothing that affirmed their worth. The absence of something essential is still a wound. Emotional neglect is like growing up in a home where everyone is breathing except you. Scientific research confirms what many quietly feel. Adults who experienced emotional neglect in childhood are more likely to struggle with loneliness. Even if they're surrounded by people, they can have friends, partners, co-workers, family, and still feel a subtle emptiness, a quiet sense of being disconnected. It's not about who's around them. It's about the old belief planted in childhood. I'm not important enough to be truly seen. And yet, something remarkable often emerges from these ignored childhoods. A strength that wasn't taught, it was built in silence. Many adults who grew up unseen become deeply empathetic people. They notice things others overlook. The slight change in someone's voice, the sadness behind a smile, the exhaustion in someone's eyes. Neglected children learned to read emotions because they had to. It was their way of navigating an unpredictable world. In adulthood, this sensitivity can become a powerful gift. They show compassion in ways that come from lived experience, not theory. But even empathy has a cost. They get used to carrying the emotional weight of others while ignoring their own. They give so much that they forget how to receive. They listen so deeply that they lose track of their own voice. And healing begins not when they stop caring about others, but when they start caring about themselves. 2. Healing from being an ignored child doesn't begin with a dramatic moment. It doesn't arrive like a sudden breakthrough or a loud realization. It usually starts quiet.